and welcome to Sustainability with Sasja. My name is Sasja, and here we have Sasja. How are you, Sasja?
I'm good, very good today.
Nice. So today we're going to talk about biomass and what role that can play in the transition to a sustainable future.
Correct.
First off, what's biomass?
Biomass is different kinds of products from nature, animalistic and nature products that are used either for energy or for heating. They come in two forms, either as sort of a solid biomass or as a fluid biomass, which is usually called biofuels.
Okay, I get it. So we have the EU taxonomy that we've spoken about before here in this show. According to the EU taxonomy, how sustainable is biomass?
You know, this has been a very interesting journey for the European Union because you have this huge dependency on biomass in certain parts of Europe, especially for the transition part. I think most of the countries in the European Union today regard biomass as being renewable. As such, is a big bulk of their transition capacity towards more sustainable energy systems, going forward. And the interesting part has been this, I would say, a political fight between the north part of Europe, whereas Finland and Sweden are the sort of countries that have been driving this agenda, to include biomass as renewable energy, a classification of renewable energy. And other countries like France and Germany needs gas because they have sort of taking down the nuclear energy, and France has very much dependency on nuclear. So you have this triangle of things coming in, and everybody's trying to get their own sort of a source of energy to be regarded as renewable. So biomass is regarded as renewable with certain type of criteria that need to be fulfilled. However, there are a lot of questions regarding the sustainability of biomass, given that production is and also use in certain parts of the world is associated with also emissions, but other type of I would say environmental and social challenges. Yeah.
Okay, so we spoke about nuclear energy last time.
Yes.
Is that sustainable according to the EU taxonomy?
Well, I think EU taxonomy today has postponed a bit of that definition going forward.
All right.
Because they need to do some kind of number of independent reviews to get that done. I think the reason for that was that they couldn't agree, so they needed taxonomy to come into the force, and it's a good thing that taxonomy is there. Of course, it's a first step, so it will need to be developed. But I think the biomass and nuclear energy and the gas are parts of taxonomy that are still to be sort of clarified and defined going forward.
Yeah, it is kind of a work in progress, this EU taxonomy.
It is. It's not the sort of it's a living taxonomy, and I think that the idea of the European Union is, of course, to try to do as much as they can to support the EU Green Deal at this stage.
Yeah, and getting back to biomass, like you said, a lot of the Nordic countries rely quite heavily on biomass. So there has been a lot of lobbying from both Sweden and Finland on the biomass, including that making it a sustainable alternative. So which are the biggest producers of biofuel today?
If we talk about biofuel, we talk about US, Brazil, China to a certain extent. If you talk about biomass, who's using the biomass in their energy it's Germany, it's UK, Nordic countries. So it's not the same thing everywhere. So biofuels is a different thing from solid biomass that is used in energy development, but also in heating.
Okay, I get it. It's interesting to see that Brazil is one of the biggest producers.
Yeah, given, and this is the question, now we sort of flip it back to the question of the agricultural residues, the products in agriculture that are used for production of biomass, either as a liquid fuel or as an energy source. And this is something that has been very much debated, especially in certain environmental circles, about how sustainable is biomass, because the pros of biomass today as it produced are many, because it replaces fossil fuel energy, it has a significantly better impact on pollution and environment in general. However, you have the issue is that there hasn't been a study so far that will clearly indicate what is the sustainability footprint of biomass throughout the entire value chain, from sourcing, heating, where does it come from. All these different sort of steps haven't been accounted for yet, and this is something that International Energy Agency and many others are sort of pointing at. The UN Climate Commission in many cases are indicating that biomass is renewable energy source that can be used. However, it needs to be done in a maybe a bit more. We need to give it more time, but we also need to see what is the total sustainability footprint of the biomass throughout the entire chain.
But what's kind of your thoughts on the development of biomass? Do you think it's going to play a big part in the...
It stands for 10% today of the energy mix. I think it's in certain parts of the world it will probably grow. I think that Europe is still very much on the path to, and especially in the Nordic regions, to integrate biomass as a sort of integral part of the energy mix for transition. It will stay there. I don't know in terms of the growth how much it will grow. I mean, there are certain projections that it will grow a number of percent until 2024, even beyond. For biomass to be financially, commercially interesting, it needs a scale. And it also needs, I would say, to some extent, better translation of these social and environmental impacts into sort of mitigation measures. What do you do with parts of the biomass production that have social impacts on communities in developing countries, on the food supply and other things? And that is not, in many cases, cleared yet. I mean, we had a case in Sweden I think it's a couple of weeks ago, a month, where there was a biomass residues, products used from Baltic countries, shipped over to Sweden to be burned for the energy, although in that particular case that was not clearly, I mean, it was not clear how good was that from a climate perspective.
Yeah, I mean, in Sweden we have lots of forests. Why would we?
Yes, so you have, there are a number of things that need to be cleared out on that.
Yeah. So, but if you would want to invest your money in some biomass companies, what are some examples of companies that you could look into?
No, nobody forgotten, nobody mentioned, but I think there are two sort of a level of things here. If you look at the biomass in general as energy producing companies, I think there are, I mean, a lot of existing energy producing companies are shifting, and biomass is one of the first things that you would do if you're oil and gas sort of a energy type of companies that is fossil heavy. So many of the coal sort of power companies are shifting their sort of a production towards biomass. So there's a lot of things that you could look at there. If you look on the biofuels, it's probably a bit of a different ball game, but most of them are based in the US.
Okay.
I think there is a number of production facility planned. There are some in Europe, but I think the heavy part is actually still in the US, and many companies that you can have a look at.
On the US stock exchange then. So what's your final verdict on biomass? Do you think it's here to stay, or? Yeah,
I think it's here to stay. It's going to be here. It's one part of the solution. It's not the solution, but it's, of course, as many other energy sources, is a part of it. I think it will be probably going forward, given demographic changes, given urbanization. We have discussion on how sustainable is a lifestyle in general. Biomass question will come in, not only because they have environmental social impact, but also because we can actually, if we use it in a smart way, we could phase out fossil energy maybe even faster.
Let's move on with the next topic. There's been a lot of talk about ESG funds outperforming the broader market, especially now during COVID. But I read in your newsletter that there's been some research kind of debating, questioning this, whether it's true or not. Can you tell me more about this?
I mean, this is one of the number of debates that is going on in the market right now, and it is because of the surge of ESG products around the world, and also surge of interest in this from client perspective. If you look at the AUM growth in this segment, it's huge. So of course there are a number of players trying to figure out what is actually really there. Is there an alpha, as industry call it, in the ESG investments, and how does it work? And I think what is symptomatic is that you will sort of apply that across all the range. I would say that ESG funds, per definition, are not creating alpha. I would not agree to that. But I think ESG is implemented and developed in certain asset classes in a different way. And it's very hard to say at this stage exactly how much does the ESG contribute to your sort of a performance in the particular product, given that you on the other side have a lot of data issues, you have quality issues on the data, you have depth of the data you don't have access to. There are a number of things. So I think we should sort of look at it. We should accept that criticism will come. A lot of different studies will come. In the same way, I don't think it doesn't sort of work one size fits all. ESG is not the sort of a unicorn of the investment for the next 25 years. It is one element that can contribute you to have a better understanding, and then it's up to you to understand how you can integrate this in the way how you manage money and what you expect.
Yeah, do you think it can have anything to do with the fact that a lot of ESG funds, or some ESG funds, are actively managed?
I think, I mean, active versus passive is also a big question in the industry. So how on the active side ESG is much more sort of a common. On the passive side you see development, there has been a development. It's much harder, especially on the, I would say if you talk about engagement, active ownership, all of these things that you will influence companies. If you are passive asset managers, then that's how construction is. You can't do that much about that.
No.
So I think active versus passive, ESG, creating performance or not. My answer to that question is pretty often is depends how you do it. It depends how you manage, what kind of experience you have, what depth you take in, what angle you take on your investment. You know, is it concentrated? Is it quant driven? Is it? I mean, there are so many parameters in this. So I think the criticism is relevant, and we need to listen to it. But I think what is also relevant to sort of reinstate, and I did this in my 10 commandments on ESG investments, is that it is what you do with it. It's how you do. I mean, it is how you do it. It's not about the fact that ESG per definition will give you something. And there is another angle to this, and it's relevant to mention in this context. I think there is a lot of white, green, whatever we call it, washing in ESG. Because now with the EU SFDR, I mean disclosure, you will have most of the products in Article 8, some are Article 9. So everybody's in Article 8 space, which means there's a lot of marketing, PR thing going on, which is what it is.
There's 3 different articles, right?
It's 6, 8 and 9.
6, 8 and 9?
Yes.
Okay. And can you please just go through them?
The article, Sustainable Financial Disclosure Regulation, is the one that sort of determines how we're going to present the products that we sell on the market throughout the lenses of ESG. So Article 6 is a mainstream investments, do not take into account any specific ESG things.
Okay.
Article 8 is where the ESG is part of your investment process. You do certain amount of things in a product, but has no objectives. So Article 9 is a product which is, according to SFDR, a truly sort of a green product, where the fund has clear, tangible metrics and objectives that will be follow up. So the product has objective.
Okay.
And in most of the cases, what you see in Sweden and many other places around the world is that most of the ESG products today are in Article 8 products. So they have ESG as an element, it's integrated, but there is no clear objective.
Kind of halfway.
It's a halfway house. In many cases, I think there are many good asset managers out there saying that, you know, we don't want to go for Article 9, it's a bit of unclear. We don't want to overpromise, so we are a bit more cautious, and that's maybe good. But if you look at the way how the sort of a market goes, I think you will see more and more push on Article 9 products. Because as we discussed earlier in one of our earlier sort of interactions, there is a very little evidence that we can give to our clients in general as industry on what is the result of the investment. So what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do in my daily work is to say, how can we transfer the ESG into tangible results? What is the outcome?
So you know what you're buying, you know what you get.
You know what you're buying, you know what you get.
Yeah. I understand. So yeah, like you said, we spoke about greenwashing previously as well. But let's end today's session with talking a little bit something that happened closer to home. We have the Swedish elder care company that's listed on the Swedish stock market, Attendo, that got itself into a little bit of a delicate situation.
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
Well, if I understand the case correctly, Attendo is, and this is a very Swedish sort of a perspective from it, because it's tax sort of a funded private company that provides care in various segments, I guess, in Sweden, and has been accused for various type of things, including the silencing employees that were protesting about how the care was being taken care of during the COVID situation. But also sort of indicates a bit that this construction that we have, it's not sort of a clean cut, because there has been a lot of pressure on the leadership in the company and the CEO, because the company has received the state help during COVID.
Right.
The funds to support the business. In the same time, there was a payout of bonuses and
to the CEO.
To the CEO, and I guess to the number of other people in the leadership part. The sort of it is the construct of it, but it's also what the owners of this company are actually doing.
Exactly. Some of the biggest shareholders are Swedbank, Gladiator, SEB, and Nordea, for example.
Yeah, and
how did they react when they heard?
Yeah, I think if I understood correctly, there was a quite silent from the biggest owners. But I also guess that these owners need to understand the situation correctly, and they need to also assess what is actually mean for them going forward.
And I do think the CEO said that he wasn't gonna, like, after the criticism came, he decided that I'm not gonna.
It's a sort of a payback of bonuses, and that's fine. But I think this indicates that in many cases you would think that ESG issues in general, this is a particular really interesting governance issue for any asset owner or any asset manager, that it's not far away. It's not in Southern Africa or Brazil.
It's happening right here.
It's actually happening right here at your door. And the way also how these asset owners view their role in this, it's extremely important, because I think all of them are constructive, but they also need to make sure and secure that these things, going forward, that they have a very clear line, what is accepted and what is not.
Yeah, I agree with you. If they want to be responsible owners, then they need to.
Yeah, it's not just talk the talk, it's about walking the walk. We are all sustainable today, and that's good. But we also need to sort of show what do we mean by that, and clearly indicate when the things are not good, but also give credit when things are good. Definitely.
Well, Sasja, that was all for today. Let's see what we're going to talk about in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. So thank you guys for watching. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and like everything that we do. Take care.
Thank you.